Hello, welcome to your review on regulation. And what we're going to start out with is thermoregulation. So the first part of the regulation chapter deals with thermoregulation. And thermoregulation is basically the regulation of your temperature. Now, there were two types of organisms we learned about in the chapter. One was ectotherms and one was endotherms. Remember, endotherms keep a constant rate or a constant metabolism that allows their temperature to be at a certain level, and that temperature is usually around 37, 38 degrees centigrade. That keeps your body temperature constant while allowing the enzymes and other major organs to still function within that same temperature. Now, ectotherms are a little different. Ectotherms' body temperature is regulated based on the environment. Okay, and as the environment increases in temperature, the ectotherm that you are looking at is going to also increase in temperature. So as you can see, there's almost a direct correlation right here. The graph's a little off, but there's almost a one-for-one direct correlation between the increase in ambient temperature, which is the outside, and an increase in body temperature. So with ectotherms, they are generally regulated one-for-one with the environment, and with endotherms, you're going to stay roughly the same temperature. Now, there are a few different ways that animals use the circulatory system to help regulate their body temperature. One of those is, as an example, this dolphin here. What you actually are going to see in most animals, like the dolphin, like the elephant here, also for example, is that they use thin pieces of tissue around their body to expose their blood vessels, their arteries, and their veins to the environment more so than if they were inside the body, tucked away. And what that does is literally the blood moves from inside the body to points on the edge, like in this flipper or in this ear of the elephant, where it's going to cool down due to the fact that this tissue is so thin there. The heat coming off the surface of the animal can actually escape, cooling down the blood, cooling down the animal. So in doing this, you actually thermoregulate through having thinner pieces of tissue in different parts of the body. So again, and this is an example for mammals, but if we actually look at an example for humans, humans have a few different reactions to regulating their body temperature. If your body temperature actually gets high, your hypothalamus kind of acts as your thermostat in your brain. What it does is it senses the temperature of your blood going up, going down, and does a few different things. If the temperature actually goes up, what happens first is that the blood vessels dilate, exposing more of the surrounding tissue to the blood, and kind of exchanging those blood cells to get them more spread around, exposing them to the outside environment, which is eventually going to be your skin. What your brain's also going to do is initiate the production of sweat from sweat glands. Now, fluid like sweat doesn't just initially cool you off because it's wet. What sweat does is allow convection to happen, which is when wind or the environment kind of brushes over your body, taking the sweat and the water off the surface of your skin, thus taking heat with it. I just said thus again. I'm known for doing that. So as the sweat comes off the body, it's going to cool you down and lower your body temperature. And when that happens, as soon as you reach your homeostatic temperature again, you're not going to produce sweat anymore. If your body temperature gets low or actually goes down in a colder environment, your hypothalamus is still going to recognize that. But what it's going to do, first off, is shrink or constrict your blood vessels. It's also going to start it's also going to start stimulating your skeletal muscles to start vibrating. Now, we know from the circulation chapter that your skeletal muscles surround parts of your blood vessels, pushing the blood around the body. So if they're vibrating, they're generating heat in the blood and in the rest of your body, causing your body temperature to go up, getting you back to your homeostatic temperature. So there are a lot of different ways to regulate body temperature. Many animals do it different ways, but thermal regulation is definitely an important part in regulating the body. So what we'll next talk about is osmoregulation. And in osmoregulation, what we're going to have is basically marine life. What I'm going to talk about here is saltwater fish first, and then freshwater. Now with saltwater fish, they are surrounded constantly by ions such as magnesium, calcium, sodium, things like that in the water that they're not going to need a lot of because they're constantly surrounded by these ions. But what they're not really surrounded by a lot is water, okay, actual H2O. So what do saltwater animals actually do? Well, they take in lots of seawater. Okay, and in taking in seawater, when they drink all that seawater in, yes, they're getting all of those extra ions as well because they have to drink all of it. They can't just nitpick the water out of it. But what they're going to be doing is excreting a lot of the salt. Okay, so in excreting the salt and excreting very little of the water, they keep their constant water level at a certain limit inside their body. Excrete salt. In freshwater fish, we're going to have generally the opposite. The marine organism is going to take in water the same way. I mean, it's going to still take in the water, but instead of keeping a lot of the H2O, because in freshwater there's a lot more H2O than salts, it's going to excrete, keep having to think about how to spell this, excrete the water part, or the H2O, and it's going to keep the salts, which help it regulate how much salt is in its body compared to water. Okay, so osmoregulation is kind of a different way of regulating than what land organisms use, but it's still a way of doing it. And in osmoregulation, again, with marine mammals, they're still excreting just through the same normal excretory system. However, they're doing it in a less concentrated way than the land animals do. Next, we'll talk about a few other methods of excretion. One we talked about when we went through the taxonomy chapter with flatworms or flame cells. Flame cells were touched on a little bit. I just want to review that again. With flame cells, remember, you have these cilia here on the outside of the flame cell, and that is connected to kind of, well, this is going to be your flame cell, but this entire thing is the bulb that's going to filter in a lot of interstitial fluid that contains the waste and the blood and things like that inside the organism. And as that gets filtered through the flame cell, it's going to be excreted to the outside by the tubule that it's moving through after it gets filtered. So flame cells are really a pretty rudimentary way of excreting waste. But in humans, what we have is a little more complicated waste. So we have the total kidney here. Each kidney contains these medulla sections, and each medulla contains a ton of these different, or not different, but a ton of these the same nephrons, but they're all separate. It's not like there's one nephron for one medulla. There's a ton of nephrons in there. And what a nephron is going to do is it's going to take in blood from the vena cava that's going back to the heart and filter it through before it gets there. And the first step in here, if I can label all these, is in the glomerulus. There, what we have is filtration. And what happens in that stage is that the excess salts and water get filtered through the blood vessels and into the glomerulus, into the excretion part of the nephron. So as it gets through into the excretion, that basically that tubule that's going to excrete the waste, it has to first pass through the tube of Henle here, which allows for some reabsorption to happen. Now, not everything in the filtration process is going to be perfect. So this part right here, which I'll do reabsorption. Hope I spelled that right. Is going to take in some of that excess stuff that was absorbed and kind of put it back into the blood vessels. The longer the tube of Henle is, the more absorption can take place. And then after reabsorption is done, whatever's still left in that tubule is going to get excreted right here through a process called excretion, which is the main goal of this whole thing. Okay. Lastly, we're going to talk about kind of how your body regulates water. One of the main hormones that does this is an antidiuretic hormone. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of diuretics to help kind of reabsorb water, keep people hydrated. But what your body does when you're lacking water is secrete this enzyme called ADH. Its technical name is an antidiuretic hormone. And what that does is it just initiates in your body the reabsorption of water. So inside the collecting ducts in your kidneys, what's going to happen is a lot of water is going to get reabsorbed through the reabsorption process and put back into your blood, increasing the osmolarity. And you're also going to actually have an urge to drink water, which is also going to push up the water concentration in your blood. And then as that blood osmolarity increases, ADH is going to go down, and you'll eventually regulate the amount of water in your blood just the same as you would regulate salts or anything else in your body. So that's going to be the review for regulation. If you have any other questions, please see your teacher, and good luck. See you next time.